Jimmy John's, America's #1 sandwich delivery, fast Ed speaking. I'm on my way.
I'm in the backyard here, Ed.
Wow, you are fast.
Yes, sir, freaky fast and freaky good. But I gotta say, I've never delivered to a dude in a doghouse.
Well, I'm definitely in the doghouse.
I thought in the doghouse was just an expression, a figure of speech.
Well, the doghouse is a very real place.
How long are you condemned to your canine quarters?
Too soon to tell, but on the bright
The
side...
doghouse has a bright side.
Yeah, the wife can't throw a lamp this far.
I guess she's been working out.
Order Jimmy John's sandwich delivery today. Jimmy John's. Freaky fast. Freaky fresh.
Blog Talk Radio.
Writing your book is the easy part. Promoting your book so readers can find and purchase it is the hard part. Welcome to the Author Chat Show, hosted by author-publisher Lynda D. Brown. Follow us at www.facebook.com/authorchat. And to contact the show to promote your book, contact me at theauthorchatshow@gmail.com. Stay tuned and listen to today's show.
Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Author Chat Show. I'm your host, Lynda D. Brown. My guest today is author Michela Fantinel. Michela is stopping by the Author Chat Show to chat about her book, The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries. This is Michela's first appearance on the Author Chat Show, and we'll be right back to chat with her about her book after a word from today's sponsor.
PrimeStar Publicity and Public Relations is a full-service firm ready to fill the needs of their clients. Owner Helen Cook has more than 32 years of publicity, public relations, advertising, and marketing experience, and she focuses her professional talents on working with her clients' strengths to create customized, strategic campaigns, whether their needs are great or small. Radio, TV, print, internet, publicity, marketing, creating a social media presence, branding, client positioning, author tours, speaking events. These are just some of the services PrimeStar provides for their clients. For a complete list of services and other information about the company, please visit our website, www.primestarpublicity.com, or email Helen at helen.cook@primestarpublicity.com, or phone 903-654-0938. PrimeStar's home office is located in the Houston, Texas area.
All right, welcome back to the show. For those of you just tuning in, my guest today is author Michela Fantinel. Michela is calling in from Australia, from down under, to chat with us about her book, The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries. Michela, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lynda. Thank you for inviting me. Hi, and hi to everyone.
Hi there, sweetie. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I think I actually misspoke. You're actually calling in from Milan, Italy. Is that correct?
I'm calling from Italy right now because I'm in Italy right now. That's correct, yes.
Italy right now. All right. Well, Michela, again, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Since this is your first time on the show, why don't we get started with you telling us a little bit about yourself? How long have you been writing?
Well, I started writing about 6 years ago when I was in a transitional, I call it transitional phase of my life. I gave up corporate life after a long career in sales management, and I started my blog out of my passion for Australia. So I started up a blog, and then the blog became into a website, and then it all evolved over the years. So the outcome is a book about Australia for the sole independent traveler. So I'm writing for people who love to travel independently, who love to create their own itinerary. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Travel books are really a great way to start your publishing career if you've never really did a book before. Do you have a lot of pictures in your book, Michela?
Well, there are quite a lot of pictures, but not too many. Just a few, because I think the main goal of the book is to provide the tools and the knowledge to create the itinerary. Of course, there are some good photos to give you an idea of what you're going to see, but it's not really the main focus of the book. It's not a book about photography, but it's a book about how to create your travel itinerary and what to do and what to do in the time you have, so to make the most of your time in Australia.
Exactly. And I think that's really important. And one of the things, as I look at the inside of your book from Amazon, I'm actually looking at the inside of her book. If you go to Amazon.com, and again, the title of the book is The Ultimate Guide to Australian Itineraries, and she does have a subtitle, How to Create the Perfect Travel Itinerary in Australia. And one of the things that I do like that you have in here, Michela, is because I used to work for the airline, so traveling is really a passion of mine. And one of the things that I see that you've done, and I think this is a must for every traveler, especially if you're a female traveling by yourself, and that is that you have to have sort of like a goal, a focus on what it is that you want to do. So tell us how your book can really help someone focus on making sure that they have the right itinerary for what it is that they like to do when they go to Australia. What's the focus?
Yes, it's very important to have a focus, because with a big country like Australia, it's so easy to get lost, and really lost in the way that if you try to fit, the whole of Australia in 3 weeks, it won't be possible. So you have really to ask yourself, what do I want to do in Australia? Well, what's the main interest? Are you more interested in natural wildlife, or do you like more culture, or do you like more cities? So or what do you want to do? Is it a holiday? Is it a gap year, or a time that you want a career break? Do you want to spend more time? Do you want to spend just a short time? So what do you want to do in Australia? So with a clear focus, it will be much, much easier to identify your itinerary. So it will show you where to go and what to do. So when you have a clear focus, then it will be much easier to pick the destinations, to pick the way you want to get around, to pick the way of transportation. So it will be much, much easier.
Exactly. Another thing that you mentioned in your book is making sure that you actually visit at the right time. One of the reasons why I wanted you to touch base on this is because, like I said, as an ex-airline employee, we knew in order to fly what we call non-rev, so that we, really don't have to pay that much for it, we had to make sure that the days and the seasons were right. Just like we knew that September, believe it or not, we like the Caribbean, is basically hurricane season. So that might be a time that you want to travel. It might not be a time. Why is that so important when traveling to Australia?
Because Australia, many people probably forget about it, but there are so many climate zones within Australia. You have the northern Australia with tropical weather, really tropical weather, and then you go towards the central part of Australia, which is very arid, and you have, like the desert, you have, cold nights and warm days, but you also have the wet season. You may have really floods, and you won't be able to drive because the roads are flooded. You won't be able to do anything if you are there the wrong time of the year. And then you go towards the southern part of Australia, which is on one end, on the west part, is like a Mediterranean climate, and on the other one is, with cold winters and warm summers in the southeast. So, and it's just the other way around. It's an upside down world because it's in the southern hemisphere. So when you have summer in the States, you have the winter in Australia. But the winter is good for the northern part. So the winter is the dry season for the tropical northern Australia. So it may be good to go to the north of Australia instead of visiting the cold south. So you really have to know, okay, I have my time in this time of the year, this period of the year. So what's good for Australia in that time of the year? So not really pick. If you pick the wrong destination, I don't think you are going to enjoy Australia so much. So you really have to know when is the best time to visit which part of Australia.
Exactly. And that's very important to know, because I did not know this, that when we're celebrating our summer months from May to September, Northern Australia is actually preparing for their winter months. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. If you leave, for instance, from June to August in the States, and you're going to Australia, this is very much winter in Australia. So if you go to Sydney in winter, it won't be really time to go to the beach. No. So you have to. Obviously, you can plan some days there, but it will be much better for you to go either to the central part of Australia or to the north, so that you will have some warm weather, which is important. I think people want to go to Australia not to enjoy the winter and the cold, but to enjoy summer and the warm weather. Yeah. So you have to take this into account, and you have really to know what you're doing. Yeah.
Exactly. And in your book, Michela, do you mention for solo travelers any type of website if they're looking for somebody to share the expense with, how they can partner up with people from other countries to travel together? Do you mention that in your book?
You mean if some people can, if they can find some resources to travel with someone as a solo traveler?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, in the book, I don't really mention resources for like travel apps or for finding travel companions or things like that. I actually showed how to travel by yourself, but the book is mainly focused for the solo traveler, but not necessarily only. You can also travel with a companion if you prefer, but since I wrote out of my experience, and I am a solo traveler, and I've traveled extensively around Australia for over 12 years and covering nearly 100,000 kilometers in Australia, and mostly by myself. So I think you can do it. You can do it by yourself. Obviously, there are some regions in Australia which are a bit, I would say, challenging, a bit demanding for if you don't have much driving experience with 4-wheel drive or something like this. So maybe, but if you put this aside, it will be easy to travel by yourself. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Wonderful. What an adventurous woman. Because for some reason, it's amazing that even in this day and age, Michela, you have some people that are still afraid to travel by themselves. And like you mentioned, you've got blogs now, you've got individual websites. I actually follow, there's a group of travelers, they travel internationally to places that I like to visit. So it's all kind of different ways that you can figure out how to create a trip or create an itinerary for a trip. Here's another interesting thing that you have in your book that I like for you to touch on. And, actually, it's two things. Number one, how important is it to have a budget and to stick to that budget? So let's talk about that first, and then we'll talk about my other question after you answer the question about the budget. How do you fix a budget when you're not really, if this is the first time that you've actually been to Australia, how difficult is it to create a budget that you'll be able to stick to?
I would say once you have a picture of what the main costs are, let's say the transportation, which is flight. Flight obviously is going to cost you something because to reach Australia, which is a remote country from all over the world, is going to cost you something. So you have to have that clear in your mind that you are going to spend probably from the States $1,500 or maybe less, depending on, probably $1,500 way in return, depending when you're leaving, when you're going to Australia, because high peak season and low season. But that's the main cost that you have to get there. Once you are there, then you have to think about it. How do I want to travel around Australia? Do I want to travel? Do I want a camping holiday, or do I want to have like a normal holiday, like let's say hotel or budget accommodation? And how am I going to travel around Australia? So you have the transportation, accommodation, which are the most expensive things. And once you know what type of accommodation, what type of transportation you are facing, and what are the average prices for them, then you can have a rough budget of the estimate of cost. Obviously, in my book, I give all this information because I know I have a lot of experience, and I know how you can save money on things like transportation, accommodation. And so I tell people what to do, but you really have to have a budget and say, okay, I have $5,000 to spend, but if I spend less, it will be okay, but I don't want to go over this money. So you will have to find the way of keeping to that budget, but I'm showing you all of this in the book.
Okay. And another thing that you touch on is, and I find this to be interesting, make 80% of your arrangements before you leave, but leave 10 to 20% to be decided upon once you get there, so that you can have a bit of spontaneity in your travel. Why is that a good thing?
I think Australia is probably one of those countries where, in my opinion, it's better to have probably 80% to 20%. Some people may think, oh, it's a lot. I would rather say 50-50 or something like this. But for Australia, I would recommend 80% planned holiday, because by doing so, you really keep the cost low. Otherwise, if you want to take the liberty and the freedom, okay, I want to change my mind when I'm there, or I want to make up my mind once I am there, then you're going to spend a lot of money, because Australia is a country, it's a big country, but there are almost no population within the country. It's just along the coast. So for transportation, it's really expensive if you don't plan ahead. So you cannot really go to Australia and decide in the last minute, I want to go to Ayers Rock and want to travel from Sydney, because you're going to spend a lot of money for the flight. So you really have to plan. All the frame of your itinerary has to be planned. which is the 80%. And the 20%, it's just the day-to-day holiday, you know. You don't have to plan what you're going to do every day. You can decide it, obviously, spontaneously. And once you have 3 days to spend in Sydney, for instance, you don't have to know in advance what you're going to do in those 3 days. You can decide spontaneously once you are there. But once you have built your frame around Sydney with the accommodation, how to get there, which is flight, then you are safe. You're safe because you have already invested in the frame of your itinerary for Sydney, but you are free actually to do whatever you want. You can change your plan. Instead of going with a ferry, you can do something else. You can take a day out instead of visiting the city if you prefer. So you are really free to get organized as you prefer. And that's not going to impact your budget. So, yes, that much.
Okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, author Michela Fantinel is going to read an excerpt from her book, The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries. So stay right there. Don't move. We'll be right back after a word from today's sponsor.
PrimeStar Publicity and Public Relations is a full-service firm ready to fill the needs of their clients. Owner Helen Cook has more than 32 years of publicity, public relations, advertising, and marketing experience, and she focuses her professional talents on working with her clients' strengths to create customized, strategic campaigns, whether their needs are great or small. Radio, TV, print, internet, publicity, marketing, creating a social media presence, branding, client positioning, author tours, speaking events. These are just some of the services PrimeStar provides for their clients. For a complete list of services and other information about the company, please visit our website, www.primestarpublicity.com, or email Helen at helen.cook@primestarpublicity.com, or phone 903-654-0938. PrimeStar's home office is located in the Houston, Texas area.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're here with author Michela Fantinel. She's going to read an excerpt from her book, The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries, How to Create the Perfect Travel Itinerary in Australia. Currently, the book is available in the Kindle format. Are we making any plans to have it available in a paperback format as well, Michela?
Right now, not really, but I'm thinking about, because I've been asked to do that. So I might, turn it into a paperback, but it will be upon request. It will be.
Exactly.
I'm working on this as well. Yeah, it's nice to have it on a paperback, format too.
Absolutely. Okay, can you tell us what page you're going to be reading from and what chapter?
I'm reading from the first chapter, a brief introduction to the 3 elements of a perfect trip.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm going. There are 3 elements that will determine the success of your trip: timing, transportation, and destinations. In this section, I'll review each of these in depth. So the first one is timing. Whether your trip is 2 weeks or 3 months, timing is key. On one hand, you don't want to miss out on important things. But on the other hand, you don't want to stay too long in one place, as you want to make the most of your time. So how do you find out how much time you need for each destination? First-hand experience, and that's where I can help you. That is where I can help you. In 10 years of travel around Australia, I've tested several options. I've made many mistakes and learned how things work. These are my suggestions from a solo point of view. You might need to tweak this suggestion based on on how you want to travel, what activities you plan, and whether you plan to travel alone or with a travel companion. With that being said, here's how much time you need in these core destinations. And so here I'm going through all the main core destinations, but now I want to go to the second part of the 3 elements of a perfect trip, which is transportation. Once you have identified which destination you are visiting and how long you are spending in each one, the next step is to decide how you're going to get to and around your destination. Self-driving is a flexible way of traveling around Australia, since you can adjust your stay as you like, whereas flights and train journeys can't be easily changed. Here are some transportation tips. Book all your domestic flights before leaving from home, and only when you have a fixed itinerary. Changing the dates of an already booked flight means paying for a new ticket unless you have a flexi-fare ticket that allow date changes. Rail and bus passes are great because they allow you to change the dates of your travel. Greyhound, for instance, offers a variety of bus passes. And here is my entire guide on train travel. Calculate enough time for road trips and for connection with other transportation. You don't want to miss flights or ferries, as this will mean increasing your cost and dealing with the hassle that comes with missing a connection, a flight connection or a train connection. Plan to get to your destination city at least 5 to 8 hours before early morning flights or ferries. Google Maps can be helpful for calculating timing and getting a feel for distances. For trains, make sure you reach your destination the evening before. I know from experience that you need to plan carefully when you travel alone, as you can't swap driving duties and need time to rest after a long drive. In my opinion, there is no better way to travel around than using a car or a camper van. This will increase your freedom infinitely. Here are some of questions you probably have about driving in Australia. What's driving in Australia like? Driving is easier than what you might think. Outside of the cities, traffic is almost non-existent. In remote areas of the outback, however, you certainly need a level of expertise and will need to be familiar with four-wheel drive too. All main outback road trips are on bitumen roads. For two-wheel drive, I find it easier to drive from Alice Springs to Kings Canyon and to Uluru, Ayers Rock, than to drive along the Great Ocean Road, which is full of bends and requires more concentration. So how do you choose road trips as a solo traveler? If you're traveling on your own for the first time, I would choose short road trips. It's better to start with a travel distance of 200 or 300 kilometers, like a round trip on Kangaroo Island. It's good to drive in a loop, select road trips that start from one city, continue on a route with several interesting stops, and return back to your starting point, like, for instance, Melbourne to Wilson Promontory or Cairns to Cape Tribulation, and so on. Use a two-wheel drive for outback road trips. On all bitumen roads, you can use a two-wheel drive car, like the Uluru trip from Alice Springs. No special driving skills are required. So what if you don't like driving? If I'd like to drive, but don't fancy driving completely alone. You can look for a travel companion. You can join on a road trip, or you can join a tour. So you can look in hostel bulletin boards. This is a great way of making friends with other travelers. For instance, YHA hostels are a great way to meet fellow travelers. You can also search online and so on. So this and the number 3 destination is short now. Choosing your destination is the hardest part of any trip itinerary. To make it a little bit easier, think back to the question I asked you before. So what's the focus of your trip? What are you trying to get out of it? And ask this question to yourself. What distances So can you drive on your own, or will you need four-wheel drive? What alternative ways of transportation do you have? Can you consider how much time do you need to visit a place or an area? So these are...
Okay, Michela, we're going to have to stop you there because you're about to run out of time. Before you do that, could you quickly tell our listening audience how they can connect with you online?
They can connect with me through my website, which is www.rockytravel.net. They can find me on Twitter, which is the same with Rocky Travel. On Facebook is the Rocky Travel blog. On Instagram, it will be the same, Rocky Travel. And if they want to send an email, is info@rockytravel.net. And yes, on Amazon, if they look for the ultimate guide for Australia Itineraries, they will find me.
Okay.
And yes.
So she has her author page set up. So we will be putting Michela's contact information on our Author Chat Facebook page and blog. And Michela, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience with traveling in Australia in your book, The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries, How to Create the Perfect Travel Itinerary in Australia. Currently, the Kindle edition is $9.99. So I highly recommend if you guys are planning a trip to Australia and this is your first time or your second or third time and you still consider yourself a novice, this is a book that you probably want to make sure that you have in your library. So that way, Michela can help you plan that perfect trip. Go ahead, sweetie.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was too fast. Thank you so much, Lynda, for having me. I really enjoyed the interview, and thank you all for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye, sweetie. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. You were a great guest. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that was author Michela Fantinel, and she spells that. First name is Michela. Last name is F as in Frank, Antinel. And again, the book is The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries, How to Create the Perfect Travel Itinerary in Australia. So again, this is to help you create your own itinerary, especially if you're traveling by yourself. You're not traveling with a group. You're just kind of, like she said, she's done it plenty of times. Just put a backpack on and head out. So if this is something that you're interested in, I highly recommend that you get a copy of The Ultimate Guide to Australia Itineraries, How to Create the Perfect Travel Itinerary in Australia. Well, that's our show for today. We'll be right back here on Saturday with another author to discuss their book on the Author Chat Show. So get out here and enjoy your Wednesday. Bye-bye.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can seem intense. Like breakup R&B intense.
I thought you said you loved the sweater that I got you. If you didn't, you could have told me.
Geico makes it easy. Just go to Geico.com anytime to update or check your policy without all the extra drama.
I even had a gift receipt.